Okay, so we are now recording the first Small Business Accounting Advisors Hangout of 2021, January 8th. Hello, everyone.
Hello, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
That's
So this is
right.
reset year,
Friday.
I think.
I was muted.
Are we ready to reset, or are we just doing the same old things? It's January and time for W-2s and 1099s.
Oh, it's work till you drop to the end of January, just like it is every year.
So one thing that I've been seeing a lot about people who e-file their 941s and 940s, they are sitting in pending status because the IRS system that accepts e-filed 900 series returns is down until probably the 11th. We're hoping. It's normally back up by January 6th at the latest, so January 11th is a big surprise to me.
Maybe it caught COVID.
Their system, I think, when I checked the other day if their system to apply for EINs was up and running again, it was not.
Oh,
So I don't-
wow, that's tough. It's tax season now. We are in season.
Yeah, I know they're not taking returns. I saw it between the 15th and the February 1st for e-filing tax returns.
You did your first return today, Dennis? Is that what you said?
No, I was trying to e-file a 2019 return and said their system's down, and then I did some research and it looked like it'd be down. They're expecting to be back up between the 15th of January, maybe February
25th of
1st,
January?
1st of
But
February.
You're talking about
Tax
or
returns.
941.
1040s.
1040 for prior year.
Well, I don't know if most people know this, but the IRS system shuts down to get retooled every year right around Christmas time
Right,
for about 2 weeks.
right.
Everything is down. The only thing that you might be able to possibly get are 900 series transcripts. They can't, if you call and ask them for a transcript of a W-2, they can't get it to you between Christmas and the first week of January. But you should be able to get 941 and 940 transcripts. And 944, 943, they're all the same.
They want you to stay home and have Christmas with your family.
We'll go with that. I think it's just that their system is so old that it has to go down in order to get recoded for the new tax season.
And there's lots of new stuff this year.
There is.
I think I actually called the AARP people, I think yesterday, and I'm like, because of this shoulder issue and, you know, all the other projects we're involved in right now, my ability to do taxes for free is severely hampered. So
That's right.
maybe in March, I'm like, I still want to get certified, but you know, my availability is a lot more constrained than I thought it would be. So.
Sorry to hear that. Okay. 1099 NEC. Non-employee compensation. Pardon me?
Of course, it's still printed red, which confuses everybody. Even after what? How many years has it been? 15 or 17 years since they did away with the red requirement? Or is this the 1099? 1099.
This is the 1099. No, the 1099 still has the red requirement.
I'm still thinking W-2, sorry.
I was gonna be like, no, the W-2s don't have to be red, but the 1099s do. So, and interesting thing, if you go to the IRS website and look for the 2020 1099 fillable form, it's the 2021 fillable form.
So you can no longer get the 2020, huh?
It's got to be a mistake. but because I don't even know how many people are online. They're like, nope, I got the 2021 fillable form. We're all good. And I'm like, you need the one that says 2020 and I can't find it. I've looked everywhere. Even if you go into the tax form year history and you pull up the 2020, it still opens as the 2021.
Really? I found it and downloaded it as part of my,
Yeah, I had it. I had one downloaded from before.
now it's gone.
Here, current revision,
Well,
form
current's always-
1099.
Yeah, current's never current. It's always next year's. But then you should be
And if
able-
you go to prior year,
yeah.
there's not.
Just search for yeah. Isn't that horrible?
Wait, I saw it. Oh, that's the miss.
That's the info copy. Oh, maybe we don't. Oh yeah, here we go. But it's not the fillable one.
Aren't the 1099 forms not fillable by nature anyway? You have to actually be on, if you're going to file paper, you have to use the actual paper from the IRS because it's not an exact 8.5 by 11 sheet.
Right. And they want that red ink.
That might be true. I know they were talking about, I know that was true last year, but I thought this year they were talking about making it be a fillable one that you could print and mail without having to buy the special paper.
There is a fillable
But it
one.
still had to be printed in red.
There's a fillable one down below for the information copy for the
Yeah.
city and probably for the receiver.
I could have, maybe I'm just making things up in my head, but I could have swore earlier this year, like in November, this was fillable. But I agree with Greg. I was always traditionally, you had to order the special forms from either get the free ones from the IRS or go to the office supply store and buy them.
Yeah. I haven't done paper forms in 4 years.
That's been about that long for me too. Cause I got fancier printers that would jam with the IRS paper. Cause it's the carbon copies.
Right.
But I have seen so many conversations where people were surprised that the 1099 miscellaneous for this year had a paper file due date of March 1st or an e-file due date of March 31st. And I'm like, that hasn't changed.
It's the same as last year.
It's been the same for the last 12 years or 10 years almost. But
I have a question for you, and I really don't know this answer, so I'm not just busting your chops. So with the Intuit payroll, Intuit payroll allows you underneath the payroll tab in QBO to pay contractors. Does Intuit actually fill out the 1099 EC?
I have no idea. I don't think so.
You can buy the service for them to do it. I don't ever really do it that way. I just go to, fill out
I have the quote free payroll service that you get as a pro advisor. And I actually use it.
They've never sent my 1099s for me. And I use that to pay just a few of my contractors, but not all of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they didn't used to have it down in the payroll section, so it almost sets up the wrong expectation.
Yeah, I did see that it was in the payroll section this year along with the vendors. At least
Mhm.
they didn't take it out of the vendors and put it in the payroll section. It's in both
Oh, I'm sure
sections.
that's coming.
So Ms. Shannon, what are you doing? You are reading these instructions verbatim. All
I am.
13 pages?
All 13 pages. And I'm gonna sell it for $97. So
And
far I
how-
have so far I got right here to the end of the 1099 miscellaneous instructions, and it's about an hour. So I'm gonna start recording this weekend the NEC instructions, and I am going to skip all of these cash for fish instructions. I'm not going to read them at all. I'm just going to tell people that they're available here if you need them. The other thing that I'm working on is putting a short little instructional video on how to fill out a W-9, because there's so many people that don't know how to fill them out.
Sarah, you
And-
haven't been saying that every single year since you've been with us, have you? She's busy.
I think she's
Stalking the
busy.
mark.
So this question
I
came up.
even,
I'm sorry, go
This
ahead,
question-
Greg.
This question came up for me the other day. For the last 15 years that I've been filling out W-9 forms, the only time that I've ever filled out box 4 was, or let me take that back. I used to always fill out box 4. Then I filled out box 4 and sent it into my bank. The bank rejected it, saying that I couldn't fill out anything in box 4. So
Wow.
what is everyone's take on box 4? Should it be filled out? Because the way I read it, it should be filled out.
so here, line 4, exemptions. If you're exempt from backup withholdings and FACTA reporting, enter the appropriate.
Yeah, so it should be, for a
See,
lot of
I was never exempt before this year because I was always a single member LLC. This year I have the S Corp election. So your question, I did start reading this stuff earlier today, but it really doesn't make sense to me. What is the right way to fill that out or not?
maybe Sarah knows or has some input along those lines.
Sarah, box 4?
Box 4?
Or line 4, I guess they call it.
Yeah, so here on here,
I don't know.
section 4,
what are we talking about?
exemption codes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the W-9.
All right, what's the question?
So the line 4 is about exemptions.
Right. And nobody fills that out for some reason.
Nobody fills it out.
Nobody does.
And I was sharing the story that I used to fill it out, and then my bank actually kicked it back to me saying, "Oh, you can't fill this out."
That's like for office purposes or something? Or it was the instructions say if you're exempt from that, yeah.
I
Yeah,
should-
because I mean, you put in,
supposed to
like,
hit
say you were a
5.
corporation, you'd put in a 5.
You're supposed to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, so, but again, it falls into that category of nobody fills it out. So,
No, because I can determine that by reading the rest of the answers.
right.
Right.
Now, all this other weird stuff, securities and all that stuff, accountants like us don't deal with any of this stuff. This is banking.
Well, yeah, I know. So much of this stuff doesn't apply.
This doesn't apply. A corporation applies. I mean, you could probably bump into some of this stuff. Yeah, like a financial institution, you don't have to give it to, you don't have to do a 1099 to your bank.
Well, Dennis
Mm-mm.
probably has some fishing proceeds that he has to deal with.
It depends on what side of the country and what kind of area you're in. You may have all kinds of fishing. But I'm curious about the over 5,000 with product. That to me has
Oh.
always been cash
Ooh.
only.
I
is
know
that
what that is.
Is it worded differently this year, or am I?
It is worded differently this year, and it was really confusing on the form, but
It's implying that, which I know is not true. They don't expect 1099s for product.
you do, so you do fill out, instead of scrolling through the instructions, making people dizzy. So, and it's on both the miscellaneous and the NEC. So if you sell $5,000 or more of consumer products for resale, and they are not being resold in a retail establishment, then you fill out this box. But then, not included with this form, but as a separate sheet of paper, you list everything that you sold to them.
So what
And it
kind
has
of
to be-
products are we talking about?
Okay, a 1099 is when you disperse money. So if I disperse money buying product that I'm going to resell, and then I decide not to resell it, I have to do the 1099 to the person I bought it from.
No, it's the person who sold it. The person who sells the merchandise.
Well, yeah, okay. Say I'm Joe Blow. I have a company and I write a check to buy 1,000 widgets. Okay. And it's $5,000, $5,000 worth of widgets. Okay. I don't get a W-9 from who I just bought it from because I'm buying product. But you're saying that in what scenario would I have to give them a 1099 for the product that I bought, that I bought it for resale, but then I didn't resell it?
The
Didn't
buyer
Sell it
does
in a store.
that. The seller of the product issues the 1099 with that box
Well,
check.
the seller of the product would be, but then they're issuing a 1099 on their receipt. That doesn't make any sense.
Which seller, the first seller or the second seller?
Yeah, the person who actually had the disbursement and then they didn't sell it, or they intended to sell it.
Here. Enter X in the checkbox. Oh gosh, this is bringing me flashbacks to Wednesday night. Enter an X in the checkbox for sales by you of $5,000 or more of consumer products to a person on a buy-sell deposit commission or other commission-based or resale.
Basically,
Anywhere other than a permanent retail establishment. Do not enter a dollar amount in this box.
my wife
So-
used to get these
Yeah.
for selling
What was that
pampered
scenario?
chef or for selling this, that, the Leah Sophia jewelry. If she sold over $5,000 in product, now
But wouldn't she have been given a commission or their
Isn't that the
reimbursement?
MLMs, the multi-level marketing?
that's what I've always equated that with in my head. That box has been there for many years.
Okay, but
Yeah,
it's still
ways
the
of the
person
world.
writing the check. I mean, the person paid your wife, so the disbursement was on the person issuing the 1099.
So
1099s
no,
are based on disbursements to somebody who ended up making over $5,000 in a year.
so here's a non-multi-level marketing example. Say I produce raw goat milk soap and I'm gonna sell $5,000 of it to Sarah, and Sarah's just gonna sell it to
Her friends or
her
whatever?
friends. Then I would give Sarah a 1099 with that box checked.
But that's all
And
you
no
do.
amount listed.
No amount listed.
Right, and that's all I do. You,
Give her a 1099 with the box checked, that nobody
Yep,
can
so-
understand the directions.
yeah, and I can
It's
either
just
give her a 1099 miscellaneous or a 1099 NEC. Either one, according to when I was reading the instructions, either one work.
All it is a check mark.
Yeah, all it is you fill in the payer's name which would be the
You.
person sending it, and the recipient's name, which would be Sarah.
So all
Put
that
each of our
does
pins
is
in there
tell
and then
the
check
IRS,
this
"Hey, you
box."
might want to audit them just in case they don't do what they're supposed to do. That's all that is.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's a red
Well, you know, and I tell this to everybody, so I have no problem saying it on the recording.
flag.
But 1099s is just us tattling on the people that we
Yeah,
pay.
they're information returns. Yep. We're doing the policing for the IRS. It's a huge burden.
Yeah. Well, you know, and one of the things that, because I read these instructions all the time, but you know, when you read them so much, you just kind of skim over things and they don't click. But when I was actually recording myself reading this, there's so many places in the instructions that reference these instructions that I didn't even know existed. But it gives you instructions on 1096, 1097, 1098, 1099, 3921, 3922, 5498, and W2G.
So
And
what are,
I have no idea what these four are. Or these
isn't the
three.
5488 a sign form? Your signature form, Dennis? Dennis, you're the accountant. Where'd you go?
Oh,
Need
and my
to know-
search isn't working
What
on
was the
this.
question?
Scroll down again, Shannon. The last one, the 50, what is it, 5488?
5498.
The IRA
54?
contribution form.
IRA contributions form?
Oh, okay. Well, I've never seen one of those before. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, this has some pretty good information in here. I don't remember where it is, and I don't want to spend time scrolling through here. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is everybody gets confused on what payment types need to be included on a 1099. So there's actually a FAQ on payment card transactions. What qualifies as a payment card? The term payment card include credit card, debit card, and stored value cards, as well as payments through a distinctive marks of a payment card, such as a credit card number. So simply put, if it has a Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or any other credit card logo on the card, and it has a 16 or 17-digit number, it's a payment card that gets excluded from a 1099.
So if you are making payments via a credit card, you do not need to put those payments on that 1099. It gets excluded.
And what surprised me, and I am relatively sure I did this wrong for a number of years, because I'm like, well, a debit card, that's part of the checking account, so that gets a 1099, but I was wrong. A debit card is a credit card, and it does not get a 1099. That gets a 1099K from the merchant service company.
Really?
And so anything that is used for personal money transfers like Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, or any of the other payment types that we as accountants absolutely hate, those most of the time those are supposed to be used only for personal and not for business, so they don't have any 1099 reporting requirements. So those get a 1099 from us.
If they're used for business purposes, which they should not be.
Right. So
Gotta be a little bit careful now with Venmo. I don't know exactly when, but it was probably the second half of the year. they actually rolled out business accounts.
It
And-
did, because my yard guy, I was warning him, I'm like, be very careful with this, because they have the right to not only hold your money, but reverse out of put the money back in your client's bank accounts. And then he said, oh no, I looked into it. It's really a business Venmo. And then it's happened a couple more times. So how are we supposed to know?
I have no idea, but businesses can receive money sometimes if you're a certain type of business. So if you're a direct to consumer business, you can receive Venmo and Zelle, but it depends on your bank, and you have to get approval to receive that money. Because I have somebody who has a bunch of different rentals that they accept Venmo and Zelle for their rent payments. But I know I just had this conversation with them yesterday. They had a ton of hoops that they had to jump through in order to receive that money.
Well, we've got to, I mean, as accountants and bookkeepers, if somebody is paying bills through Venmo, business bills, we've got to know, I mean, how do we know whether that account is a business account? Because when I go into Venmo, it doesn't look any different than my sister-in-law that I, reimbursed for dinner. I mean, they don't look any different.
Well, have you logged into the business Venmo?
Well, I'm talking about, I'm the payor. So, is there a business payor site?
I
Mhm.
think that's what Greg's saying. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
But and then PayPal's the other one that you really have to pay attention to, because sometimes people think they're being all slick by sending money, friends and family, so that nobody has to pay fees.
Yeah.
So you have to know how things are being sent by PayPal. But
Yeah,
my
business.
really quick way of saying it is, if the person receiving the money has to pay a fee to receive it, it'll be on the 1099K.
Yeah.
And if they
100%.
don't, you're responsible for sending a 1099.
That's a good way to think about
That is a good way of looking at it.
I just hope it's right all the time. Because
For
sometimes I
today.
think sometimes I think, okay, well, this makes sense. And you make it really simple. And then, like everything, there's this exception, this exception, this exception.
You know what's interesting? When I go to my Venmo account, there's a place called Purchases. And I have something in there from like 2016, but that's not where I'm seeing all my payments, to get reimburse family and stuff. So I don't.
Because you're not purchasing anything from family. You are transferring.
Well, I'm just saying, I was just curious if maybe that was the differentiation, is that.
Oh, right.
Differentiation. If you're sending money to a business account, it should show up in the purchases.
Oh, right. So now I'm like, okay, so I gave my sister-in-law money for flowers. That's a gift, somewhere in here. Lawn maintenance. Okay, so that one, see, it's his name, it's his personal name. And I'm like,
So it would be
it's a proprietor, but I'm wondering now if he thinks it's a business. There was another lady that said that fixed my window. Where is she? Anyway, that's very interesting.
Yeah, he's probably using it on the personal side, and he
Right.
may well have set up a business account, but he's not
Gave
using
me
it.
the wrong name.
But beyond that, the only 1099 requirement is going to come into play when he's sending money via
Right.
Venmo.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, this is my personal Venmo.
That's your
So
personal.
I shouldn't be paying a company bill through my personal Venmo.
You can. No, you can. If it's a personal transaction, you can pay a company.
No,
Oh,
so
no,
say-
but you're talking. I just realized what you were saying. You're
Yeah.
paying,
Daddy, the electrician comes in to fix my office light.
Mhm.
And he goes, I take Venmo, and I go, oh, I have a Venmo account, but it's hooked to my personal. I think you can pick and choose which bank to draft.
You can, and
Like, if you got
that's
my
the other
business
part of
account.
Venmo that really screws. In fact, an hour and a half before this call, I had sent a message imploring one of my clients. I was like, you got to get off of the personal Venmo and over to this
Yeah.
business account, because it's just too chaotic to try to trace out based on the way that their statements show up where the money comes from. One transaction could literally come from 3 or 4 different sources, some of those being his business account, some of them being his personal account, some of those being his Venmo balance. So and it just gets so uber convoluted.
Oh, what a mess. That's
Yeah.
commingling. That's really commingling. Yeah. Yeah. When I go to
Right.
payment methods, I have my bank account, my husband's bank account, but I don't think there's anything preventing me from putting in my business.
Nothing preventing you other than you're breaking the rules.
account.
yeah.
Okay.
And
So
then
it
before-
isn't so much that
What's the
the
ancestry test?
electrician
The best
doesn't
you
have
could
a
hope
business
for.
account, is that I shouldn't pay a bill unless I have a business Venmo. That makes sense. It isn't.
It
isn't
does. Yeah.
Sub, it's the me. Yeah. Okay.
So,
In fact,
one
of the
other thing-
workarounds that I was going to propose to this guy is, if you want to accept the money into your Venmo account, I'm fine with that. But then you still have to transfer it right away into your business account, and that
Right.
has to match up to your received payment.
Right. Right. Okay, well,
Well, I
Judy,
well,
a lot of
I'm sorry.
people like pay me by Zelle, and I accept it. I declare it. I send them an invoice and that it's paid, but I don't care how
see,
they.
my bank won't even let me accept payments by Zelle from anybody.
Yeah.
And
also
there's
has-
one more thing that I want to say about the 1099 NEC.
Yes.
It is not, so if states required a 1099 miscellaneous, I don't live in a state or produce 1099s in states where there's any reporting requirement to send the 1099 to the state. But I guess there was a system that if the miscellaneous had to go, or any 1099 form had to be sent to the state, there was a program that would just automatically do that. And the 1099 NEC is not part of that program. So if you are in a state that requires that you send 1099s to the state for everybody, you will be responsible for doing that on your own. I think some of the 1099 reporting e-filing companies are rolling that out for an additional fee. So just make sure that you pay attention to the rules this year.
know your state.
Got it.
They haven't thought it through. And Georgia did release a notice that addressed this and said, you're still only required to send us a 1099 if there was withholding on it. So.
Yeah, Minnesota is the same way. You don't have to send a 1099 to the state unless you withheld and remitted the state income tax.
So we talked a little last year, actually, about the 1099 NECs, and actually doing them in QuickBooks, QBO, and desktop. This year, you have to be prepared to recode all of your chart of accounts for the 1099 NEC or the miscellaneous in both QBO and desktop. QBO is a little bit easier. I was able to do that very quickly. Desktop is a little bit more confusing. Shannon, do you want to show us where to go?
It's the dumbest wording, but Intuit isn't known for their language skills. So print and e-file 1099 forms is not where I would go to look for the mapping.
Right.
No.
But this is where the mapping is. And then you choose 1099 NEC or 1099 miscellaneous.
It
And
looked
what
like they
really,
split it off into two programs. They went, let's go to this area to do NEC and this area to do the miscellaneous, when all they had to do was just sort them.
And you
Right.
cannot put one account in both. You
I know.
cannot have
no,
the same
I mean, how
account.
hard is it? Box 7 is now box 1 NEC. That's all they had to do.
yeah. But what they did, which made it even more time consuming for us, is they completely stripped out all of the mapping.
Right.
So if you had a lot of people where it was box 1 for rent, that's all stripped out. Everything is gone. You have to completely reset up every single one of your clients completely from scratch. I had one file there where they removed all of our 1099 vendor check marks, where they were we had to go in and reset who got a 1099 and who didn't.
Wait
So
a
you have
minute. The
Start at
software
the
did
very beginning.
I haven't, is that a known problem? I mean, I haven't
I-
run into that, but
It
is-
happened in one of my clients, and thankfully it was one that only had 5 vendors.
That's freaking me out.
Isn't it like in 2020 and 2021 that it did it? I don't think it did it in 2018 because I just had somebody print out their 1099 report and it looks as if in 2018
You're talking
everything's.
about QuickBooks 2018 versus QuickBooks.
Yes,
It depends if you
the desktop
downloaded
version.
the updates, I believe. The updates in QuickBooks. Are you current in your
Oh.
2018?
Yeah,
So like,
and that was an update that on most of my files I had to manually do. I had to manually do it in all my 2019 files, but in half of my 2020 files, it updated automatically without me having to. I will share my screen again. Without having to go to, and it's in the employees, and get payroll updates, and then download the entire payroll update and let that process.
Wow, wow. And so
So-
Linda, I want to say to you, QuickBooks Desktop 2018 is sunsetting in
We know.
May.
Okay.
So you won't be
Yeah.
able to do your 1099 reports then after that, I don't believe.
Oh, no, I don't think you will. And they're all gonna upgrade by the end of April. I always tell my people to do that.
maybe
Right.
in the last year we can do the 3-year trick.
I know. I've told a number of people that already.
I'm selling
And they said,
21.
we
like
don't know when
crazy.
that's gonna stop, but
We don't know, we can still sell 21, but we don't know if we're gonna have 22. They could
right, I got that.
go right
Now-
to plus, everybody's plus.
Yeah, is the 2020 now plus as well?
2020, if you go to
You
buy
can't buy
QuickBooks
it now, right?
or in a store, call into it, it will be plus. Now, if you push it, if you call into it and go, I don't want plus, I want regular, and push them, they will.
Because
sell-
you already have 2020 and you need another license, like,
Well, that's different. Yeah, that's different. I'm talking about a brand new customer. They do not want to sell.
no,
their
I don't blame them.
desktop. Yeah.
Well,
So-
and I've seen some conversation about that where even if you call customer service, you can't get regular anymore. It's only available if you work through a reseller.
Right,
Yeah, they disagree
IRP.
with me. I got really escalated the other day because he said our sales teams are permitted to sell it when it's.
Oh.
They just don't want to.
But see, they're so poorly trained that this group might know about it and this group it just depends on who answers the phone. Okay. But the part that what he said to me was very disturbing because none of us have been notified of this. When a
Right.
brand new company buys a box of QuickBooks, they get a couple weeks or a month of limited support, like to help them.
She just froze.
Apparently
Yeah.
helping with their internet access.
But I thought it was always like that. You got a couple months worth of support for the install and whatever.
I
for
think
free.
so.
And then after that, you have to pay.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
but then,
so.
but sometimes I had one person, they're like, oh yeah, I bought Priority Circle but every time I call in, I have to pay for support. I'm like, well, that Priority Circle should be the support. So I think when you call in, the agents don't know what's
Welcome
going
back,
on
Sarah.
either.
Right.
My
Welcome
internet
back,
goes
Sarah.
down every 30 minutes like clockwork.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
Is it raining, thundering, lightning outside?
no, I just haven't wanted. See, my husband's my IT guy, and he's so busy, and I just
Yeah.
don't have the heart to bother him. But when I plug into my docking station, the internet's not there. I've done everything. So I keep flipping over and going on Wi-Fi, but for some reason, the Wi-Fi just goes bloop every 30 minutes on the dock. That's all.
Ah, there you go, see?
We'll talk about this a little bit after, Sarah.
It's a security
Yes,
feature.
Anyway,
yes.
I apologize for disappearing mid-sentence, but
That's okay. I
anyway,
think
so you know what it boils down to is we really, no matter who we are, pro advisors, resellers, regular customers, we're in this state of confusion over licensing and just
Yeah.
the path right now into it. I think, I'm not comfortable consulting with any client about anything Intuit related because, I don't know if it's true. So we're all in the same boat.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
We
are there anything else that we want to talk about 1099s before we close for today?
Mm,
Personally, I don't see what the big deal is. Whatever was in box 7 last
Goes
year.
to box
now on
1.
another
Oh,
one.
yeah. I think it's a really good change because so many people didn't know that that the IRS system can only accept one due date per
Sarah, I'm gonna
form.
mute you for a
So
second.
if you sent in one box 7 before
I think
and
it's earnest.
all the rest of them with box with all the rest that were due
Rent.
in March,
Mhm,
they would all be marked late
They're all
because
late.
of that one form.
mhm.
And I think this is gonna,
Help
I've
alleviate
seen a
that.
ton of conversations about the due date.
Well,
And
the thing is,
like, the
everybody
due
should
dates
have
were-
known that 1099s were due at January 31st. The bulk of 1099s for certain
Right,
due January 31st. It's been like that for a couple of years. If they then saw the due date for the rent and went, hey, I got to the end of March. Sorry. The fact is,
No.
I did all our rents early. I did them all at the same time on the same form. But as long as they've got 2 due dates, they have to have 2 forms.
Exactly.
yeah, I agree.
No other way to do it. Yeah.
And having to recode and go back and remap everything, it's not a bad idea to do that. It's a good time to review
Look at it.
your
Sure,
vendors.
it
It's a
is.
good time.
I'll warn you about
I-
something though. Let me warn you, because I had this client. So the client, she said, all right, I've been helping. And I dialed in, and what she did was, it flips everybody to omit. So you have to remap, right? So she goes into the NEC side, and there's a little button that says, make them all for the NEC. She goes, okay. All right. So I'm thinking, all right, because as long as I can, it'll ignore. If I don't have any services and whatever, utilities or whatever, it's not going to hurt anything, except that you can't change it to rent. So
Right.
you get all the way out, then you go into the miscellaneous side and you go to change it, and you can't change the NEC. So you got to get all the way out, go all the way in the NEC, make it omit, come all the way around, go back in the
This is in the desktop.
Yes, it is.
Right, you cannot do all for NEC because you will lose the ability then in the 1099 miscellaneous to not be able to do the rent or the lawyer or
That
anything
database,
else.
that table that says whether they're an NEC or a MI or a miscellaneous, it's two completely different tables. It's showing up on the screen, but it's two different tables. So.
Right.
I don't understand
That's
why they
true.
didn't just put the tables together and then have one column that said map to, because if you can, I don't care that you can only map one account to one form,
Always been that way. Always.
but why can't they just make it a little bit easier and have the NEC right here on this column and the miscellaneous right here on this column? One of them has to say omit.
Yeah.
They
That
did
would
it
make,
for
that'd be too
QBO,
easy.
QBD, that, I guess they're trying whatever they can to get everybody on QBO, whatever way they can.
Let's just make them miserable.
All
But we're going to
righty.
persevere. We're going
We're gonna end this week
my God.
on that note.
Touchdown.
We'll see you all, same time, same
Next
place,
week.
Have a
next
great
week.
weekend, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good weekend.
Guess what I'm doing?